Hello, good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. And wherever you are in this wide, wonderful, beautiful world, you're listening to the Global Sales Leader podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper. I'm the sales relationship coach. And the reason why relationships are so important because it helps connect people wherever you are in the world. And the world's getting a smaller place. And helping people to grow, helping people to learn. It's also about those connections that you can make with other people to build persuasive, influential, dynamic relationships, whatever it might be, because that really helps us learn and grow as people and as humans. And I'm all about that. So I've got a wonderful guest here today. His name is Devon Harris. You may or may not have heard of him, but I read about him on the Success Factors book by Ruth Gautier, and I've spoken to her several times. But Devon, you're highly recommended. So thank you for coming on today.
Hey, Jason, it's great to connect with you as well, man. Thank you for having me.
So look, there's stuff that I'm going to read about yourself just to highlight who you are. So Devon Harris, I'm not going to put your age in there because I'm reading that you're a retired Jamaican bobsleigh military officer and Jamaican national bobsleighing team back in the winter of 1988. So that was 5 years ago or so.
Yeah, 34 years.
34 years ago. Yeah, it's 2022 now. So you've had a phenomenal career. I mean, very eclectic, and especially in 1988, because you made a massive impact in the world of Olympic winter sports and made a difference. And I'm fascinated by that. And the stuff that you've done is incredible. But you've written 2 books as well, and we'll speak about that. And you now actually do a lot of keynote speaking in the subject of lots of variants of motivation, inspiration, and dynamics. But rather than me reading off your Wikipedia page, tell us that from now and your anchor points along the way to where you are now, what got to where you got, and then let's branch out from there.
Yeah, eclectic, as you said, and you used a couple of words there that generally don't belong in the same sentence. Jamaican Winter Olympics. Like, what is that, really? But yeah, obviously born and bred in Jamaica, and you mentioned I was a military officer. So there are 2 things that drove me when I was growing up. One more than the other. One was to become an army officer, and I was to become an Olympic athlete. The Olympic athlete stuff was kind of gravy, that cherry on the top. The most important thing for me was to become an army officer. So, I guess I read a couple of books, cracked a couple of books when I was in school, and you're Brit, so you're from the UK, so I did my O levels and A levels, and then I went off to join the Jamaican Defence Force and ended up at Sandhurst. Got my commission in December of 1985, and then went back to Jamaica to serve in the Jamaica Defence Force. And I remember this so clearly. I was 21 years old, and I remember walking down to the officers' mess, having this really intense conversation with myself. And I'm like, so you have achieved your big dream. You're an army officer. Is this it? What are you going to do with the rest of your life, man? And I go, oh, yeah, the Olympics. The Olympics. So this was 1987, the summer of 87. The Olympics were coming up the following year in Seoul, Korea. So I started training, started running every morning before reporting for duties, hoping that I could get fit enough to qualify for those Summer Olympics. And someone came up with the idea to start a bobsled team. My colonel suggested that I tried out for the team. I did, went to the team trials, tried my darnest, and I think they liked my smile, this one. And they selected me. And there began the saga of this thing called Jamaica Bobsled. Yes, I was on that first team in 88. I was the number 2 guy on that 4-man sled. I became a driver afterwards, and I drove the 2-man sled in 92 in Albertville, France, and 98 in Nagano, Japan. And, somewhere in between there, at the end of 92, I actually moved to the US. I'd, retired from the army. and starting life all over again. And eventually became a motivational speaker, as you mentioned. I've written a couple of books, a children's book, Yes, I Can, the story of the Jamaican bobsled team, and Keep on Pushing, hot lessons from cool runnings. And now I get to travel around the world a little bit, sharing the lessons and the insights from those experiences, and just trying to inspire people to be their best, to keep on pushing, to get to the next level in every year of their lives. And also, I'm a philanthropist as well. I have the foundation, the Keep on Pushing Foundation, that support the education of kids in disadvantaged communities, starting in my own community back in Jamaica.
Wow, that's phenomenal, and that is a real good, inspiring way to do things. So, what were the key anchors along the way that made you go, "This is what I want to do"? What inspired you to go, apart from reading a book and saying, "No one's done this before"? So, what motivated you to do that?
Whenever I'm asked this question, Jason, or in the form of it, I always go back to my grandmother, man. It's her fault. I blame her. I spent my early years with her in rural Jamaica. And, the thing I remember about her was that she was this amazing storyteller. And the stories that impacted me the most were the ones she told me about soldiers and these amazing feats they could perform and not get hurt. They could jump in these deep gullies and not break their legs. And it fired up my little 5-year-old imagination. And that inspired me to want to be a soldier. But more importantly, I think it connected with something within me. It inspired me to want to go pursue things that other people thought was incredibly difficult, if not impossible. And so as I grew older, nurturing this idea of doing this impossible thing of becoming a soldier, and then discovering that you could actually enlist as an officer, is like, oh, it's more difficult, but that's what I should go for, And I've always tend to aim for that more difficult thing. When I tried out for the bobsled team, the brakemen had to score more than the drivers. And knowing nothing about the sport, I just assumed that the brakeman was a more important role on the sled. So I'm like, I want to be a brakeman. And when I got in the sport, I realized that the driver was the linchpin to this thing. I'm like, oh, I want to be a driver. So I've always just kind of strove to do things that other people think are difficult.
Yeah, because it sounds like you did something that was groundbreaking at the time, and you led the way forward in doing something that is no one else has done, and it's probably the same as Eddie Richards in England that was doing the ski jump.
Eddie Edwards, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone just thought of him going his nuts. And because there's no, there's only Scotland really to actually practice and train on. So you probably have the similar sort of thing going on at that particular time. Going, well, we have to make haste, but you made it pretty cool to do that as well.
Yeah, but but the lesson here. So we did it. Eddie the Eagle did it. Going against the grain and up against all obstacles. Just the average person just couldn't see how this could be done. And I think one of the things that make our story so popular, for want of a better term, and Eddie the Eagle's story as well, is the fact that the average and ordinary people around the world can relate to our stories, right? They see these guys going off to go pursue this quote unquote impossible dream. Yeah. And it reminds them of all their dreams that they have that they think is impossible, that people will laugh at, and that they have shied away from because of that dynamic. And we have reminded them that, no, it's, what, you may fail, you may crash like we did, you may not necessarily soar, but it's at least worth a try. Yeah. And the amazing thing is that, man, once you've tried, like, you can never go back to that place as you were before, right? There's only forward moving from there.
So I'm fascinated by the tools of resilience there, because and against adversity, what were the tools and resilience that you built into yourself and into your team to make that happen? Because that must have motivated you forward in some respects.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, and I think I have words for them these days. I do speak about resilience, and developing a resilient mindset. I didn't have words for them back then. I certainly didn't think of them in those terms. But I think the first thing is, that I speak about is the idea of responsibility, taking personal responsibility for your outcomes. Like all of us are dealing with these uncontrollable events in our lives. Yeah, from who your parents are to where you were raised and the schools you attended and the neighborhoods, and to today we've all been dealing with collectively with COVID-19 and the ensuing pandemic, right? These are things that you have absolutely no control over, but you can't throw your hands in the air and go, oh my God, this is the end of me, right? Because that's garbage.
Yeah.
It comes down to you deciding, hey, this is, forgive the cliche, but if it's to be, it's up to me. And so you have to pick yourself up and push yourself past these challenges. And the only way you do that is by taking responsibility for that forward movement and for the results, right? Because when you don't, if you see those external circumstances as overwhelming and things that you're not powered to tackle, then you have given up your power, and you're like, oh well, this is what the rest of my life is going to be like. And I think on the surface, we are deep down, we know that's not true.
Yeah.
But we kind of succumb to what life is throwing at us. So you have to take responsibility. I think you also have to develop this ability to reframe the experiences, right? When you're going through stress, the way you look at it is going to determine whether the stress is increased or you minimize it somewhat. And I have to, in many ways, pay homage to my training at Sandhurst for much of that, man. You learn as a young budding officer to be calm, right, and to think clearly under stress, and but I've always, in addition to that, had this propensity to not see the glass as half empty, but there are always opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good way of seeing it, actually. And it is, because some people just go inside themselves, but I think you have to work from the inside out, not the outside in.
Mm-hmm.
And reframing a situation from one place to another is a really good way of looking at the world. And I'm also intrigued by your process and your thoughts. And how did you reframe the situation, and what was going through your thoughts now, then, when?
Yeah. So, I was having a conversation recently, this idea that anything you can do, I can do as well. And sometimes people kind of go off the deep end, and that's not true. You could never swim like Michael Phelps. Perhaps you can if swimming is your thing, if you have a real interest in swimming. I can't swim like Michael Phelps because I have no interest in swimming.
Yeah.
I kind of like my water frozen. But what I know is, and how I've always dealt with it though, is that very same thinking that, man, if he can do it, then I can do it too, because this is the thing I want to do. And I remember, for example, that the experience that just jumped out at me when I was doing the selection process to join the army in Jamaica. It's a rigorous 3-day process and called the selection board. And I remember standing on the obstacle course in these thin army coveralls with the winds of the ocean just sweeping up the valley. And, I'm shivering. I don't know if it's because I'm cold or nervous. Like, it was just like
both.
But I remember as I'm standing there, just like on the verge of wilting under the pressure. I remember this captain was walking down the steps with his hand behind him, and he looked like a demigod. The guy just looked so all powerful. And I remember looking at him and thinking, not so long ago, he was standing right where I am in this very situation. And look at him now, looking like a god.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you know what? If he can do it, I can do it. And almost from that moment, that instant, I thought that, I stopped being nervous. I just went for it. So I think those are the conversations that you constantly have to have, because there is very little that any of us could ever think of doing that someone hasn't done before us in some way, shape, or form. And if they have done it, why can't you? If that's what you want to do.
I think it's always a state of imposter syndrome, and thinking that you're never good enough to actually do that, and it happens to so many people. Like you've stood in front of lots and lots of people. Oh, we're back in the room. I'll edit that out, but that's all cool. So the question that I want to ask you, Devon, if you were interviewing you, what sort of questions would you ask yourself?
Ooh, I've never been asked that before, or maybe in this way. That's a really good question. What's your strongest trait? And the answer is that it's my determination. I'm just determined, because I'm unwilling to do without that which I want, and I recognize that it might take a while. I describe myself as being patiently impatient, and by that I mean that you have to push, you have to work with a sense of urgency. You can't sit back and go, oh well, whenever. I don't subscribe to, well, it happened when it happens. Like that just doesn't play well with me. So I am impatient in that sense, but I'm also persistence, determination requires a certain amount of wisdom. And so fortunately, I think I'm wise enough to recognize that there is a process. And as much as I'm pushing and I'm eager and going after this enthusiastically, that there's a learning process and there's just a natural process of how long things might take. So yeah, I am determined, but and I'm patiently impatient.
So what is your process then? How do you view the world in terms of your process? Because I think regardless of whether you're in business or in sales or whatever, there's always a process, but everyone has a slightly different view of how they view their process. But I'm fascinated by how you've done your process and how you've applied that, but how you teach that to other people.
Yeah, I guess my attitude towards the process has changed a little bit over the years. I guess I hope I'm not only older but wiser now. I used to be a lot more impatient than I am, especially with myself, and would berate myself, but that doesn't work really well, right? So I have just learned, to take these incremental steps. As long as you are moving forward in the direction that you want to be. So if your goal is to do 100 push-ups and you can only do 10 this morning, right, and 10 tomorrow, and if you can do 11, man, or if you can challenge yourself to get 12 done, don't go screaming that, oh my God, I'm so far away from 100. Just encourage yourself. Good job, you got 12 done. Let's see if you can do 13 tomorrow. And part of the thing that gives us a sense of contentment, and certainly it boosts our self-esteem, is a belief that we're making progress.
Yeah.
And if you can make progress, incremental progress, without looking over your shoulder, looking left or right at the fact that John or Mary is a little bit further ahead than you. So what? You don't know, you're probably dealing with significantly more challenges than they are. They've just had an easier, this is your road and you have to travel that road. And so your goal is to put all your energies into traveling that road as best as you possibly can. And there are enough difficulties, there are enough detractors out there. You shouldn't join in the chorus.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should be cheering. You should become your biggest cheerleader.
There's a saying going, and I've just designed a process on it. You know when they say the grass is green on the other side, but it tends not to be. It's to tend your own grass first before you look anywhere else, because you keep looking everywhere else, but you're not actually looking after yourself. And you're absolutely quite right about rewarding yourself for incremental steps and giving yourself a pat on the back and go, I'm quite grateful for that. So that is so encouraging. Everyone that I speak to, they pretty much everyone does the same thing once they get up to that 2% or that 1% of success. And you've obviously achieved that.
You know, one of the things that athletic coach, a track coach will do teach their athletes, although people may find it counterintuitive, is, hey, you have to run your own race. So here it is that you're in a race with 8 or 10 other people or more. And the coach is like, and you're racing against these people, because you're trying to get to the finish line before them. But it's like, run your own race. Because again, everybody has a different strategy. And do you have to adjust your strategy within the race? Absolutely. Because you're not in a vacuum, but for the most part, you have to focus and execute on the things that you have practiced and trained for. And then make allowance for whatever else is happening. But if you flip the script and be focused more about what everybody else is doing, then you're sure as hell going to lose. And I think we have to adopt that kind of philosophy in our lives as well. In the long run, in the marketplace, you are in fact competing against the other salesperson or the other company and so on and so forth. In my sport of bobsledding, it's the same thing. It's one of us on the track, but I can't be thinking about the fact that the Irish team just put down this time and I'm trying to beat it. Right? No, I have to drive the track to the best of my ability. And then at the end of it, we measure to see how it went. Right? We need to do that in our lives as well.
Yeah, that's really good, and that's quite inspiring how you've actually framed that in a way, because that's for everyone really to look inside. And I always like a guy I know quite well, and you probably know it's Tom Ziegler, son of Zig Ziglar.
Right.
You connect your passion with your purpose to your dream, and you've obviously done that in a really good, interesting way. And you've gone at it in a nice way. And I take my hat, if I had a hat, I'll take it off. Award you for that. So, what other questions would you ask yourself? Because I'm always interested in you interviewing yourself from a holistic point of view. What other question would you say to yourself that no one said to you?
Well, I think we all get to that point where we start with a dream and we start working towards a dream and we start making some progress. And then what do you do with that? Is it all about you, or how do you go about becoming the best you can be while at the same time making an impact in the world? So it speaks to the business of purpose. And the way I look at it is, all of us have a responsibility, and I know that could come across as a heavy word, but that's how I view it, because I think all of us have benefited from someone who went ahead of us, someone who will never know, 2, 3 generations, not necessarily in the literal sense, who helped someone who have come to help us. That one kind word, right? It's because somebody 2 or 3 generations did something for somebody, etc., etc. So we have to, yes, pay it forward. And so I so believe in that. I so believe that as we all go about the mundane things that we do every single day, making those sales calls or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Books are straight. And no matter what it is we do and how much we love it, there are going to be those tough days, right? I think when you're thinking beyond yourself and what you do fit in the world and plays a part in the world that's outside of yourself, it gives you that added energy, that added impetus to keep on pushing. So yeah, but I would ask myself about purpose. And so my goal is to continue. So I claim, don't tell my wife this, but I claim I don't work, right?
I won't tell her. Don't worry.
Now, do I make effort? Absolutely. I make tons of effort every single day, but it doesn't feel like work. Because when I'm on stage, I feel like I'm on purpose, man. Like, this is what I was meant to do. And I don't take it for granted. I don't have a speaking engagement and go, okay, what time? All right, cool. I'll be there. And I get up and I start making stuff up. I prepare.
Yeah.
Right. That's where the effort comes in. And there's a lot of effort, but it doesn't feel burdensome.
Yeah.
I'm driven to do it.
I like that, because that's the, as they say, it's the iceberg effect. It's all the work and preparation that you do underneath that no one else sees. And a little bit above when go, God, he's easy. That's easy. He's done. That's natural to him. He's the only person that can do it. I can do it, but we can all do this when we set our minds and our focus on our integrity to do this, because this is what we love to do. And I can see that within yourself. This is what you're born to do, and this is what you love to do. So when you give something back, and we always want to be remembered in the world, what's the one or two things that you can give forward to the world and be remembered for, outside of all your accolades? But what are some things that you'd love to give to the world back?
I think the biggest thing we can give to the world is a powerful example. I mean, when people are looking at you and go, wow, he did that. And they can probably see themselves in you in whichever way it fits for them, right? However that mirror reflects on them, or reflects back to them. They're like, wow. Again, if he did it, I can do it. Not the same thing that I did, but it's a way to inspire them to go pursue their own dreams, right? That's what it really comes down to. So yeah, I think it's a powerful example, man. And the bonus is to meet someone who go, wow, you inspired me, And if you didn't, that's fine too. If you never met someone, but that sure feels good when someone will say, you know what, I saw you, I know your story, and you inspire me, and I went off and I did this, I did that, right? And I remember years ago, a little girl in Wyoming wrote me, and she goes, whenever I have a problem, I go, what would Devon Harris do? Right? That's when you put the cape on and you fly around the room, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that'll be your legacy to the world.
Pardon me?
That'll be your legacy.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Yeah.
Love that. That's absolutely all inspiring. Devon, you've been absolutely incredible today, and I really thoroughly enjoyed. I have a whole load of other questions, and I haven't even got anywhere near them, because I'm really fascinated by what you do and your processes and how you pivoted against adversity and made a difference, and you're still making a difference today, which is phenomenal. So
well, I talk to people about keep on pushing, and I believe in being authentic and being congruent. So the goal is to keep on growing, man, keep on expanding.
I think being congruent, and I think it's being true to yourself, which is being authentic and you're you. And no one else can ever take that away from what you do, because you're you and I'm me and whoever else. But I think it's, as time goes on, you start to realize you don't want to be like anyone else. You just want to be yourself, and how you portray and how you show up to the world. Yeah. That's something that I've learned to do, and just to be normal, just be yourself, not to be whoever else. It's good to have inspiration, but take that inspiration and bring it back into yourself. That's the way I look at the world.
No, I agree with you. I just did a short video of fact or fiction Cool Runnings, or that was a life lesson from Cool Runnings. And there's a scene where Darius Bonnet, the driver, is trying to be like the Swiss and do everything. And the thing is that all of us, as you just so rightly said, we can go look at others and draw inspiration and even, get mentorship from them. But in the end, you have to see how it fits you, and so you learn from them, but then you have to take the pieces from all of these different places that work for you and who you are, as opposed to try to become, as the Swiss, as Jarix did. But to as Sanka says, if we're going to be Jamaican bobsledders, we're better as hell at Jamaican and be Jamaican.
Absolutely. You've got to be proud of who you are, where you are, regardless against anything else. And I think you've done an incredible job there, because even back then, I remember all of that from the movie and everything else. I know it was a little bit more comedic, but
creative licensing, yeah.
Yeah, creative license there. And like, we all have elements of creative license in there, but it was the impact more so than anything else, and the how people remember you by the stories that you've told. And I think that's your gift forward to the world, of the stories that you can inspire and motivate people in the right direction, take people out of where they actually are in the situation, because there's challenging places all over the world, and just take them out of where they are and go, well, anything and everything is possible. But once you set your desire and your motivations to actually want to do it and need to do it, and it's in your frontal head, it's in your head going, I have to do it. This is what I'm made. This is what I'm designed to do.
Yeah, I mean, it is a process, right? As I said earlier, being patiently impatient. So it does start, as you said, with that image in your head. Nothing in the world starts without that image in your head, and that then, if I would dare say, it connects to your heart, right? Yeah. It's just like, oh, that you have the image, and you have the. It sounds like I'm crossing myself, and I'm not even Catholic, but but it connects to your heart, man, and then that's the heart is where you start to overcome the challenges and start to make the effort to learn and to acquire knowledge and upgrade your skill. Like, this all happens here, I would say. It gives you that grit and that resilience and ability to stay in there, to keep on pushing until you get there. And there's that heart, I think, also, that says, wow, what I'm doing, the things that I'm doing could actually make a difference in the world, at least for one person. And you keep doing that, and then the heart enjoys the fruits of that labor as well.
Yeah, I absolutely concur with that. That's one of the things that I love, and we all get that every now and again. But I think it comes from a little bit of visualization on how we visualize the world and how we visualize where we want to go. Once you visualize it, you can see it, feel it, do it, but then you have to act on it.
Yeah. The images, the first of all, having that vision, that creating that compelling vision of where you want to go, is a thing that drives our behaviors, drives our commitment and our desire. And spending time creating that image in your mind creates a certain level of certainty in you, right? So although you've never done this thing before, like, I didn't know how I was going to get into the Army Officer Corps, I didn't know how I was going to make this bobsled team, I was going to even get to the Olympics, but I kept imagining that this was going to happen, right? And so you have the vision, and then your vision, which is giving you some direction as to where you want to go, and then you're actually visualizing that outcome that creates a certain sense of familiarity with the end result and the process, and a certain amount of certainty that you can actually get there. And it all just kind of come together in I don't necessarily want to use the word magical, but it's almost a magical kind of way, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. Like, Devon, you've been absolutely phenomenal, and I really appreciate all of your time. How can people find out more about you outside of my Wikipedia research and my Amazon stuff that I found? But how can people find out more?
Yeah, man. I say I'm the easiest guy to find. DevonHarris.com. DevonHarris.com is my website. On Twitter and Instagram, keep on pushing 88. See how creative that is? Keep on pushing 88, and you'll find me.
I'm going to actually connect with you on all the levels, and I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, and I wish you every success going forward, even more success than you've actually done right now. And thank you very much. You've been listening to the Global Sales Leader podcast. Every week I speak to inspiring, motivational people that have broken the boundaries and made a difference. The process is wonderful, but listen to everything that Devon has said today to get and make your difference and make it yourself and be yourself and be inspired. So thank you once again.
Indeed. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.